Welcome to this week's Ask the Expert feature. Today I'm joined by two of the industry's top experts in retention, our very own Guy Griffiths from The Collective and also the retention guru Paul Bedford. Welcome both.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us today. Today we're going to be discussing how member retention will change post-COVID and whether or not these turbulent times will actually allow us to see the opportunity in this and potentially improve retention going forwards. So let's start by first looking at inductions. Obviously, this is always an area of controversy in clubs. If we're honest, very few actually do it well. But as members start to return to clubs, hopefully in July, well, that's a whole different topic. How do we go about engaging those members, potentially using tools like inductions? And do you think they'll become an essential health and safety tool going forwards? So Paul, do you want to kick us off and let us know your thoughts on that?
I think really what you have to think about is there'll be two types of induction. There'll be a health and safety induction around what the operator is actually asking the customer to maintain in terms of social distancing, cleaning, those types of things. And then there'll be the traditional type of induction, onboarding, orientation, which, if I'm a gym user, if I go back to the club that I use, I would expect to have the health and safety one. And then, I mean this in a polite way, get out of my way, I want to train.
Yeah.
Because I know what I'm doing, I know where I'm going, and I know I'm probably going to go back to what I was doing before. But I think for new customers, new people walking in, there's going to have to be something slightly different. So anyone that's been attracted by the health and fitness industry because of the COVID situation said, actually, I need to join a gym, I need to get fit and healthy. I do really think we need to, in a lot of cases, rethink the content of our inductions to match their context, as opposed to an induction because of the way we want to do it. It should be more focused on them.
Yeah. Guy, any additional thoughts there?
Absolutely. I mean, I've always banged on about inductions not being for health and safety. So I'm having to eat my words now because I think it's a great opportunity, as Paul says, to deliver an induction for everyone that comes back and new members as well. And that's probably going to be a 5-minute, and we're going to impose it on people for health and safety reasons. If we can call it anything other than an induction, we know what we mean in the fitness industry, but a welcome session, a getting started, and anything else, but get everyone to go through that. And as Paul says, make it as easy as possible for those experienced exercisers to crack on. But within every induction, welcome session, to have that hook, to have that rapport building, to have that personalized, I want to find out about your goals, I want to know about you, and then whether you're then walking the floor and reconnecting with those people. It's a great opportunity to reconnect and to start to build interactions and rapport, and also to go back and tell people off for not adhering to whatever the policies and procedures you have. So it's important in that respect. But it's a great opportunity for instructors to get to know more members, particularly the ones coming back.
Definitely.
Yeah, we were delivering a training yesterday face to face, and we were saying to the staff, we were saying, one of the things we're going to have to manage is the resource, because a lot of the businesses that are going to open aren't going to open to full hours, full staff, full time. And so you're going to have a reduced number of staff in the building, and you have to go, okay, if we insist that everybody has I'm going to call it a cleaning induction, just for, I've got no better term, what's the resource we're going to put onto that? And if that person is doing that, are they also going to be able to do other things that Guy's just mentioned in terms of walk the floor, interact with people? Or is it we're not going to have that resource? And I think operators need to think that through. What is my exercise police role and what is my cleaning role? And it's not going to be as simple, I think, as people first thought it would be.
No, and I'd add to that, I would get as many people to deliver, as many of your staff to deliver these as possible. There will be certain clubs who maybe aren't using online booking systems, who have queues outside the door. There's an opportunity. You'll probably have an induction video that members can watch before they come back into the club. That is that health and safety. It's the classic, this is how you put your life jacket on, this is how you put your seatbelt on, but for a gym. That can be a video. But even though you see those videos on airplanes, for example, there's still stewards and stewardesses showing you how to do it in person. And I think even if you have an induction video at your club, I've talked to quite a few clients about this, you also need to have your staff doing that. And I would rotate those staff. I would have duty managers doing it. I would have instructors doing it. I'd have everyone doing it, because that helps to drill the policies and procedures into your staff as well.
Yeah.
So rotating that. And it's also running those, the first couple of days, there's going to be 20, 30 people, maybe even more at those group sessions, socially distanced, of course. But there'll be feedback coming in from those. So I'd like to see simple reporting. It could just be a spreadsheet that says, you know, yes, there were 20 people at that session. I got these 3 questions. And to start to get that member feedback loop going as well, because you'll learn a lot from that too.
Yeah, and you touched on, both of you have obviously mentioned policing and that side of things, and you know, it can be used as a tool then to subsequently go back to people and say, you know, you're breaking that rule.
Yeah.
Obviously that's, you know, as we know, instructors, gym instructors, fitness instructors, etc., aren't always the best at communicating with members, and often can find it quite daunting actually going up to those clients, especially when it's giving them potential feedback, should we say. So what tips would you give to clubs and to instructors on how to actually communicate that with people? Because I'm sure you've both seen it in the supermarkets when you're out and about. People aren't adhering to social distancing.
Yeah.
People aren't following the rules. And it's very easy, I think, to slip back into old habits. So how do they go about communicating that effectively, so not to offend those clients, but to make sure that they are doing their role and looking after the well-being of their clients?
So the approach we've taken is, we've said, when you do your briefing about going into the club, I think the challenge is a lot of the signage I've already seen is negative. It's like, you can't do this, you can't do that. It's all what you can't do, not what you can do. And where I was yesterday at the Sports Village, you know, their signage is, thank you for adhering to social distancing. So they were talking and presenting everything in a positive way. Yeah. Now, I think during that clean brief that I talked about, I think there you have to upfront frame it and say to people, while you're in the gym, we know when you go back in there, there's that chance that you'll slip back into old behaviours. Don't be surprised if one of our staff comes over and just gives you a gentle nudge to go, that's not quite what we were looking for. Rather than, you know, you're not 2 meters apart, you're not a meter apart. And the big thing that I'd always say is, catch people doing things right. If you see someone doing something right and you say, can I just say thank you for cleaning that machine? Now you've finished. Anyone else who hears that, it has a ripple effect, and you go, oh, they got a thank you for cleaning their machine. I'm going to clean my machine because I want to thank you. So I think we can police without, so we use the expression enforcing without enforcement. So it doesn't feel like that, you know, it's like, oh, I'm going to get told off at every opportunity. And I think the other thing is, be really conscious of how 2 meters is, or how 1 meter is. Both me and Guy are tall. My arm is 1 meter long. Yeah. No one stands next to me or close to me within 1 meter. So actually being able to judge how far people are apart and go, actually, they are social distancing. Because when I watched people set out chairs yesterday, their interpretation of 2 meters was closer to 4.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But they looked at it and they went, oh, we spread these out. Now, I can appreciate some people who are anxious in that training. But actually, when I said to them, this is a meter, they were like, that's a meter. And I'm like, that's a meter. So I think catch people doing things right would be one of the things I would tell operators.
Yeah, I love that. Guy?
Yeah, it's good. Well, it's similar to exercise correction in the old school. I guess going around and spotting someone who's doing something wrong. You know, have the confidence, have the tools to do that. But as Paul says, you know, try and have more positive interactions than you are having possibly more negative ones. You know, positive reinforcement is really important. So, you know, thank you for doing that. Thanks for cleaning that. You know, you're doing that absolutely right. Is something that instructors do really well. So carrying on with that, I don't know that all clubs will want to log these kind of things, but logging those kind of interactions, you know, not every single interaction you have, but if you do have a meaningful interaction with someone and you've got a system to log it on, then log it and just look at a tally of those, look at what feedback you get, because sometimes instructors will need to correct someone, not because of their exercise technique, because of social distancing or not cleaning something down. And if that interaction goes bad, then it will be good to have that logged, so that they can be backed up by the line management, for example. But I'm not a fan of logging everything, but getting some data on that would be useful, I would say.
Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting takeaway just with regards to the flipping it to being more positive, because as you mentioned earlier, Paul, everything's big red crosses and don't do this, don't do that, don't go here, do this, it's very negative language, full stop. And I think it's something to be learned. And I actually saw something from a gym in Switzerland where they didn't want to have big yellow and red crosses on the floor. So instead they've put blue ribbons.
Yeah.
So instead of they've not been able to move equipment. So instead of putting great big yellow and black tape across it, they've put a little blue ribbon on it, which means that you can't use that piece of equipment. And it's just subtle things like that. And the same with language. But I think those small positive changes are just perceived, because people should be coming to us and feeling safe. They should be coming to us to feel welcome and enjoy that experience, not feel like they're in a highly controlled official area.
Without going back to the inductions, that's another reason why they are important. It's not for the members who just want to get on and get into the gym and pick heavy stuff up and put it down again. It's for the people who are nervous and the people who are cautious, which is why reports of how inductions are going and things like little online videos of this is what you will see when you get to the club. And then for that cautious member or member who's been shielding for a number of weeks or whatever else comes along and sees it again and sees the staff there reinforcing the message that they already know, so that they feel more confident. Yeah,
definitely. So obviously throughout lockdown, there's been a huge rise in digital offerings, and members of all walks in life have actually embraced this online shift. What do you think clubs should have in mind when considering reopening, and how they should continue to look at further digital engagement with their clients thereafter?
There's from a data point of view, there's a lot more data now. And that needs to be used to the club's advantage. So we know that people have been exercising. A lot of the analysis I've done during lockdown is on club members and how many calories they've burned and how much they've exercised. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the people who are working out more than 10 times a month are still working out 10 times a month. Those people who work out once or twice a month, not so much. So as ever, it's those at-risk members we need to worry about. But even as we come out of lockdown, those solutions still need to be there. I think they need to be even stronger. There's going to be a load of members who can't come back, don't want to come back, can't afford to come back. And to say to them, look, we've got your back. We've got, we can still support you with these, not just classes, but online workouts and online coaching and interaction. Whether that's just an email or whether it's a Zoom call, whether it's, it doesn't have to be a Zoom call. It could just be a phone call. Those still work. But reaching out to members and engaging with them. There's been some great stories of people who've had calls from their clubs, even from the big leisure trusts. And that's what people are missing. As much as my kids they do say they're missing school, but actually what they're missing is interaction with their classmates. They're not missing the work. They're not really missing their teacher. They're missing interaction. And I think that's what most people at clubs are missing. So if they can come back on day one, brilliant. They're probably going to be fine. It's the ones that can't come back on day one that we need to reach out to digitally, and not just with classes, but with workouts, with plugging their Strava into the app so we can see what they're doing and support them. But also reaching out to them and supporting them with whatever they're doing.
Yeah. And Paul, from your kind of experience, what tools are out there to help clubs with that digital engagement, and what would you recommend? What data should they be capturing ultimately?
Well, I think what we'll see going forward, first of all, is that there'll be share of customer in terms of how the customer takes their exercise. So I know we did a report with Live Fitness a few years ago with Aaron Williams, where we looked at people who joined boutiques, also were members of other clubs. So they weren't members of one club. And I think what we'll see more coming out of lockdown is people that have an online membership for something, and that may not be the operator they're working, they're normally going to, and a real world. I'm one of those. you know, I'm using online training a lot, but I've always used online training a lot. And I'm not going to, you know, I'm lucky I've got a spinning bike and I use it at home and I do some of the most famous online training companies trainings and I love them. And people say, oh, well, you're going to come back and do spinning in the club? No, but I've never done spinning in the club.
Yeah.
So, but what I've got now is a better offering. And I think what operators are going to have to do with initially their digital offering, if it's a streamed type services or recorded services, is up the quality.
Yeah, definitely.
And they're going to need to see how engaged people are in those products. You know, how long are they viewing them for? Are they watching replays or are they watching lives? Those types of things. And we'll also see the difference between instructors that are really good online and really good in the real world, and they may not be good at both.
Yeah.
And then to Guy's point about collecting, you know, aggregating the data around what people are doing. So like I said, in lockdown, I've been riding a spinning bike. I've also been riding my mountain bike. All my data goes through my zone and in my Apple Watch, and I've got Strava. So it's all being collected. It's whether operators can translate that data into actionable products or advice for their customers, because there's no lack of information. It's just not coordinated in a way that an operator can go, based on that, we could do this. It's all just like, oh, look how many people are exercising outside. And I suppose, you know, I suppose it's perception. Both me and Guy look at a lot of things through a set of glasses that are just about how do you keep customers.
Yeah.
All of the, you know, when I look at stuff that comes out online, it's like, it's all gone online now. That's all the people who've got online products for sale.
Yeah.
You know, and it hasn't all gone online. And, you know, look at the boom in online. Well, yeah, that's because you've taken away the other option. You know, I'm sure takeaways have gone up and online buying's gone up because we've taken away the option to physically go into takeaways and go into shops, and that'll even itself out. But I think there's a lot of data, but it needs aggregating in a way that operators can make sense of.
Yeah.
And I think they are. It's a mountain because, as you know, we've always struggled with getting visit data.
Yes.
And that's, you know, when did someone last visit? Well, I'm not really sure. Did they swipe? Was the gate open? Obviously, it varies a lot across different sectors of the industry, but just visit data has always been a struggle, right?
Yeah.
We could forget visit data now and say we just want whether you've exercised or not. I don't really mind if you've been into the facility to exercise. You know, if you've been exercising, we're more likely to retain you. There's a bunch of other layers.
Yeah, I think the operators would be concerned whether they visit or not, because you know, from the clients that I've got internationally, you know, that have opened up, they're saying at the moment it's somewhere between 30 and 40% of their customer base are returning. Yeah, and they say if they don't suddenly see an increase in people visiting, you know, they're worried that actually that isn't a viable amount of income from 40% to actually run a business. So my own position has always been on how do we get people into clubs, and if they do other things, that's great, but for the club operators, it's about how do I get them into the clubs, how do I get them to enjoy the experience while they're in the club, and if they layer on top of that, that's fine, but I can only control what I control, and most operators can only control predominantly their club environment.
Yeah, look after the people who are in, right?
Yeah.
And do you think with booking that visits will improve? Do you see an improvement coming out of lockdown on that visit data?
I think the data that we have shows that people who train on a routine basis stay longer than people who train on an ad hoc basis. Sure. So, you know, group exercise has always got a really big credit of like, oh, they retain people longer. My question always is that because it's group exercise, or is that because people have set a time and a date to turn up and exercise that they have to turn up and exercise at? Yeah. In conjunction with it being more social. I think early phases, people are really going to have to track what proportion of their customers are visiting weekly. So what's your weekly active users of your population? So you've got 1,000 customers and only 40 come in. You've got 4% of your customers who are using your club. you know, that's, you want to be tracking to see, I suppose the math way of looking at it would be 1 times 7 isn't the same as 7 times 1. One person coming in 7 times isn't the same as 7 people coming in once.
Yes, active users rather than
Yes.
number of visits.
Yes.
Yes.
So that's what I would be looking at.
Yeah, it's quite an interesting one, I think, as well. And it's not directly relatable, but ZSL, obviously the zoos opened last week.
Yeah.
And they're on a booking system, and you have to pre-book your sessions. They've now restricted it so that members can only book once every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But I saw a report they put out a couple of days ago, and I'm a member of the zoo. That's why I got the report. Yeah. But 50% of the people who booked their appointments didn't show up last week.
Yeah.
So they could have sold those tickets to paying members rather than, well, not that members aren't paying members, but they could have sold those to pay as you go rather than giving them to the pre-allocated members. And obviously it makes you wonder whether the fitness industry will see a similar pattern with the amount of no-shows, because we all know, we get huge volumes of no-shows on show round bookings, et cetera, and classes, etc. So how do we go about preventing potentially that occurring? And again, how is that an opportunity to communicate better and re-engage and improve retention?
I would say that some of that is the upfront communication, in terms of you can create messages that say 80% of our customers who make a booking who can't turn up, let us know.
Yeah, the classic, it's the HMRC post-it note on the front of the tax return, isn't it? 96% of people fill their tax return in on time.
Yeah.
So it's a traditional nudge, but you put it in there. I think here's one of my concerns at the moment, based on yesterday's announcement that we're not opening yet. By the time we get to reopen, we may be in a position where there is no social distancing, there is no bookings, there is no need. We might just get back to, well, when you can open, actually it's self-regulation and you're looking after yourself.
Yeah.
What I have seen is, because my partner teaches for one of the big health club chains, teaches Group X, they're offering 5-person group workouts outside, and she's teaching 3 of those back to back. Several times a week. And when I said to her, how is it? She said, I had 1, I had 3, I had 1. The customers are deciding they don't want to, well, one in where she trains, they don't pay the money they pay to train in the car park. And they're actually saying, what the feedback is, actually your online provision is good enough at the moment that we'll stay here, or we just won't bother. So it's a minefield. And I think if people are used to booking, they'll book. If they're not used to booking, they won't. And an issue that, that myself and my friend have discussed, because we train together, is if I book a session and he wants to train at the same time as me, and let's say we're in our bubble, but he can't get the same booking, do neither of us go, or do we go at our own times? Or
I had exactly the same thing with Taekwondo in the park with my son this week. Booked us both on the later session, tried to get on the earlier one on the wait list, and it came back. But it's, as Paul says, it's the message. Initially, most of our members, I would make it even stronger. All of our members do this. When people aren't going to show, they let us know. Then we've always had this with classes, and I've done a lot of analysis into classes and non-attendance, and we had someone at a site who booked over 120 classes a month in the month of February. Wow. She booked them every night, when you could book them 2 weeks in advance, and that was just too long. So that trust bought their book. We changed the whole booking policy because it was causing a problem. And my initial my starting point was, as Paul would agree, get more people onto classes early in their membership, they'll stay longer. Well, we can't because all our classes are full. Well, they were fully booked, but they were only 61% attended. So the stick to go with that carrot is penalties. It's, I'm very sorry. I know we're just coming out of lockdown, but if you're booking and you're not turning up, okay, we'll give you once, we'll give you twice, but you are taking away sessions from other members and you're stopping other people from getting in. And if it means we lose you, but retain 5 more people, that's a call you have to make as a club.
I know we had a conversation recently with an operator, and we were going through we were having a meeting, and we were this prior lockdown, and they were talking about they have this issue with people booking and not turning up. And we discussed it for about 30 minutes. And then I just said to them,
was that all? Only 30 minutes?
About? And they went, 5. And I went, then get on the bloody phone and ring them.
Yeah.
I said, there's no point in changing a whole policy because of 5 people's behaviour. Get them in, get them on the phone and just say to them, look, not acceptable.
Yeah.
And it was like, but it was almost like trying to create a policy to avoid confronting customer behaviour.
Yeah.
You know, and they didn't feel confident in confronting.
Yeah, we had a long hit list. That woman was just the worst. The tip of the iceberg. And interestingly, you look down the list, and her husband was 7th on the list. He did actually attend 2 or 3 classes a month, but she booked 120 odd and came to none. And I don't know for certain, but I bet she was booking his classes for him as well, just part of those. But yeah, just lose those members.
Yeah,
I mean, this is not a great member retention chat, but I think we agree, Paul.
Yeah, I think you've got to think about the bigger picture.
It's a good member retention chat for the 5 that you mentioned, Guy, that you keep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The customer isn't always right.
No.
Yeah, exactly. So one last question for you both before we wrap up then, because I'm conscious time is ticking by. Obviously, when we started, we said today we were going to discuss how retention will potentially change post-COVID, but more importantly, will it give us an opportunity to improve retention? So just kind of in summary, what are both your opinions on that point? Do you think we can actually use this as an opportunity to improve retention? And if so, how? So Guy, do you want to give us your thoughts first?
I've got to say yes. If I said no, I'd have to pack up and go home. Yes, I think, I'm a very positive mindset person. I think we have to look at the positives coming out of that. We've covered a couple here, re-inducting everyone, getting to know your members better.
Yeah.
And I think the digital solutions as well are going to help us to have a better offering, a wider offering. And I think we might get a few more people into the fitness industry through that digital offering. I don't think it's going to be the promised land that a lot of people are talking about, because I also think that retention of digital members will be harder, of digital only. But that's another challenge I look forward to doing a bit of analysis on and working out ways of addressing.
Yeah. Paul?
Retention is going to be more important. I think the pool of people that we're drawing from, a comment I made early in the lockdown was the sleepers aren't asleep anymore. And so there'll be operators who had large numbers of customers who paid but didn't visit, who now don't even have those customers.
Yeah.
So they're going to be required to hold on to the ones they can for longer and longer and longer while they rebuild their reserves, while they bring on new customers, if customers feel comfortable coming in.
Yeah.
A concern again would be that I think during this period, most of the operators that I talk to, not my clients, but other operators, are focused almost solely on cleaning, PPE and opening as the be all and end all. And like they go, we're going to be clean. And I went, yeah, and that'll be the new benchmark, and that won't make any difference at all. It'll make a difference if you're not clean, but it won't keep people for longer. It's one of those sort of bizarre, if you do it, it has no impact, but if you don't do it, it has a massive impact.
Yeah.
There's a potential. I think that if the operators wake up to the fact that their customers drive their business, and the longer their customers stay in their business, the greater the amount of income, they'll be fine. And, like myself, Guy and others who just, we look at it from a, how do you keep customers perspective rather than how you sell. A lot of operators are now going, actually, how do we keep them? How do we keep them? And the gap between where they are and where they need to be in terms of their service levels, in terms of their infrastructure, are quite big.
Yeah.
And they're going to need to make some rapid transformations to become more customer centric rather than just traditionally a purely sales focused business.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for your insight there. I think it's been a really interesting chat today, and hopefully some really useful takeaways for clubs who, like you say, potentially haven't started thinking about the people piece, the retention piece, it's all solely been around operations, which was very similar to the conversation I had last week, well, more than last week, a few weeks ago with Peter Webb as well, where we're shifting that focus from operations to people. So I think some really interesting takeaways. If anyone does have any additional questions, please leave us a comment below, and both Paul and Guy will come back to you there. But thank you all for your time today and for tuning in, and thank you to Paul and Guy for your expertise.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.